Here at the Somerset Patriots, Steven Cusumano joined by the Yankees utility man Caleb Durbin, fresh off winning an Arizona Fall League championship and being named the Arizona Fall League Prospect of the Year. Caleb, thanks so much for the time.
Yeah, of course. Good to see you, Steven.
Well, why don't we just start there? You hear those two things, breakout prospect of the year, AFL champion. What do those accomplishments mean to you?
Yeah, I mean, it's anytime you're playing the game, you play to win it. So ending the year with a championship, no matter what it is always the goal. And I mean, it was my first championship in pro ball. So AFL or not, like it was important to me and the team as a whole. And we were putting emphasis on trying to win it. So to be able to come through at the end, was big for us. And it's always fun winning championships.
And you've been a part of the AFL 2 seasons now, and it's an interesting setting, obviously, where you're not just with your Yankees prospect teammates, but you're allocated to a team where you're with the Diamondbacks, Rockies, Twins, and Nationals prospects this year. What is it like, getting there from the day it starts to building up chemistry and just kind of rallying around each other over that month to really come together for that goal to win the championship?
Yeah, it's a really cool experience because I mean you can imagine everyone comes in, doesn't really know each other. You're playing with guys you've heard of some of them, but you've never met them or played against them or anything. And that first week or two is kind of like, all right, what's everyone like? You're kind of feeling it out, and then by the end you're like best friends. It's a really cool experience. Just like coming together as a team and building that team chemistry. And I think, that's the stuff that kind of made the difference in the end for us was we were ended up being a really tight bunch. And we believed in each other, and that kind of makes the difference in the end, and it made the difference for us. So it was I like that aspect of the game, and I thought it was a really fun experience in the fall league.
And being here in Double A for us, we always hear about prospects who return from the fall league and they were able to pick up something from, the other organizations, whether it be the players, different coaches. For you, especially being that you've done this twice now, what were you able to pick up from some of the other players or organizations that maybe you didn't know beforehand?
I think you just pick up little things throughout the year, just talking with all the guys. And I mean it's a league where teams are sending their some of their top prospects, so getting a feel for their game anytime you can get around guys like that who do have that top draft, top prospect kind of pedigree is for me really fun because you get a feel for their game and the way they play the game. And we had a ton of dudes that um, you know had that top prospect prestige, but we're gamers. They played really hard, and that's fun to see because even though um, they have kind of that hype around them. They're also ball players too, and that's always really fun. The playing with guys who have all the tools, but also get after it is you always learn a lot from them.
One thing that I haven't mentioned yet is that you also set the record for the most stolen bases in a single season and in an Arizona Fall League career. And this was coming after you were only 3 steals shy of breaking the record last year. With that in mind, when you got the call this year, was that a goal of yours? Were you kind of setting out to break the record this year?
In the back of my head, it kind of was, but once the season started, like I was just trying to get in a groove again and try to, you have that little time off. Obviously, I was still practicing and stuff, but you have that little break between the season and the fall league, so you just are worried about getting your feel at the play it back, on the bases in the field, and that's kind of your main priority. And at the same time, just trying to win the games. And then as I started being more and more comfortable with my kind of routine of preparing for pitchers on the bases and getting the right looks that I wanted in the game, and kind of rattled off a few multi-stolen base games. And then I kind of realized that, oh, I can do this, and I could kind of blow it out of the water. So that was ended up being one of the focuses, as well as trying to get better at every other part of my game.
Couple 4 stolen base games, no big deal, right?
Yeah, they definitely help.
And I was going to ask too, people don't have much of perception of, what is the talent level out there in the fall league? Because sometimes you hear it's around double A, triple A. How would you compare it to someone that's been through both levels before?
Yeah, I think it's a mix of everything, honestly. Like you get guys who um are kind of just starting up in single A, and then you have guys who are more polished and even have big league time. So there's a few guys that I had played there, that I've played through all throughout the minor league system, and then there are guys who had just gotten drafted this past year. So it's really fun. You get a good culmination of every type of level of player, and at the end of the day, everyone has deserved their opportunity to be there. I mean, I think they try to make it a big deal for a reason because there's, a lot of really good talent there, at all across all levels. So it makes it a really fun experience.
I want to dig into your baseball profile too, because we've obviously gotten to know you well in Somerset, but to some newer fans that are maybe welcoming you a little bit more to the I guess the Yankees and AAA radar, you're always somebody that has predicated your game off like base running, defense, versatility. How much pride do you take in those? I don't want to call them secondary aspects because they're not hitting, but I mean, when I think of Caleb Durbin, those are a few of the first things that come to mind for me. How much pride do you take in those kind of traits there?
Yeah, a ton of pride. I think they're the little things, right? They're the little things that everyone tries to do well. Your coaches growing up is always they're always hounding you on do the little things right. Because at the end of the day, like there's a lot of ways to go around being a good hitter. Like that's you get a lot of opportunities from what you're doing at the plate, but at the end of the day, I think those little things on the bases and on defense is what can make a difference. And I think people see that, and I think they're the things that make a difference in a playoff run or a championship. I think those are. I mean, I talk to my teammates all the time. Like we're trying to win games, and we talk about those little things all the time. Like the 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 results at the plate, like it's kind of going to come and go. So if you can make those little things as consistent as possible, they're going to give you the best chance to make it as deep as you can in a playoff run or championship type setting.
Well, I want to ask you here in Somerset. I mean, we've had teams that have led double A in stolen bases the last, I think, 3 years in a row now. What can you say about just the Yankees' development on the bases, the way that Matt Talarico has his hands on everything, and even here in Somerset, someone like Aaron Bossy, like how far do you think you've come as a base runner since joining the Yankees organization?
Yeah, it's next level here. I think just having just the way they prioritize it, is I don't know how every other org is with it, but I know that I mean the way Matt has done his job and each kind of first base coach, base running coach at each affiliate, I mean they make it a priority every single game, and I don't think it's like that everywhere. I think it's I mean they take a lot of pride in it, and I think I've always said this. I think base running is a big attitude thing, and when that starts at the top down with player development, really emphasizing that, it makes all the difference, and it's been a big difference in for me and kind of coming into my own as a base runner and base stealer.
Well, I want to ask too about, the base running, the defense, definitely important parts of your game, but I feel like your most defining trait is your contact ability. And you've called it kind of your God-given talent before your superpower. As somebody that looking since you've been traded to the Yankees, you've struck out at a lower rate than almost any player in all of professional baseball. When did you individually realize that was going to be part of your profile as a ball player?
I think it's always been there, throughout my whole life. I felt like when I looked around, I was always striking out less than most people, and um, I think in college, it really kind of set in that like, okay, if I want a chance to even play pro ball, like this has to not only be a good trade of mine, but I have to do this better than anyone else. Was kind of my mindset. And I didn't know how he would play at the next level. Going from D3 pitching to professional pitching is probably one of the bigger jumps that I've had to make, in my career, and might be the biggest jump I'll have to make because you're going from, mid 80s on a regular basis to mid 90s on a regular basis. So that's a pretty big jump there in itself. But right away, once I knew it could translate, and even that rookie ball season, I didn't hit the ball the best, but the swing and miss was still right where it usually is. Um, so that right away gave me the confidence that okay, I can build off that. As long as that's going to be consistent, I could definitely focus on other areas of my game and make that jump to try to play at the highest level. And it's always been kind of my backbone and something that I've been able to rely on.
You're coming up on 2 years since being traded now, and you've definitely made your mark and sort of your reputation on the Yankees. When you hear the praise from guys like Aaron Boone, talking about the bat to ball ability, ability on the bases, and when you hear him say you're going to play a big role for us in 2025, what does that mean to you? Especially thinking about, like you said, coming from the D3 background and all you've had to overcome and go through just to get to this point. Like, what does it mean when you hear that?
Yeah, I think being in the off season now, kind of taking a step back and putting it into perspective, it's definitely have come a long way. When you're in the grind, you're confident in your abilities and you're going through it and trying to be the best player you can be. But looking back at where I was 5 years, 4 or 5 years ago, even 3 years ago, it's pretty crazy to hear something like that from a big league manager, let alone the manager of the New York Yankees. It's I'm super grateful for the opportunities the Yankees have given me. They've given me every opportunity to compete and kind of show what I can do. And I feel like just in return, I have to, play as hard as I can and try to perform for them because they've, like I said, given me every opportunity that I could ask for to compete at a high level.
And you made a really strong impact in spring training last year, 15 big league games. You had an OPS well over 800, had a homer against Detroit. Thinking back on that experience, obviously it was a good sort of foot in the door, make a good first impression. And I don't think it's any secret, actually, right now, as of when we're recording this, today's the day that big league teams have to protect players on the 40-man roster before Rule 5 eligibility becomes a factor. What would that mean to you to be protected by the Yankees, to be someone that you are saying that they value and are prioritizing in the future going into 2025?
Yeah, I mean, it'd be really cool. It's definitely another one of those things along the way that, you know, you have that big goal in your mind to be a big league player for as long as you can. And that's just another kind of check mark on the list that um, you kind of tell yourself, all right, I'm on the right path. And they think I'm on the right path too to potentially helping a big league roster and helping them out at that level. Because that's, I mean, I've talked about it before. Like that's the biggest goal is to help them, get over that hump of winning a World Series. That's what it's all about. And this would definitely be the next step towards that. Whether it happens or not, I obviously don't control, but definitely feeling like I'm on the right path is something definitely that's encouraging.
And I think that spring training spotlight was sort of when a lot of probably casual Yankee fans learned your name. I mean, for you, what were some valuable things you took from that? Because obviously the success was there, and albeit in spring training, but what did you take from that going into ideally a big league spring training in 2025 that you can translate to next year?
I think having that experience was huge. Being around those guys, being around the coaching staff, getting to know them, they're normal people just like me. It's the same game, obviously the best talent in the world, but if you're confident in everyone there is confident in their abilities and they're trying to come together as a team to do something massive in the game. And that's something I've always dreamt of and wanted to be a part of. So having kind of that taste last spring was big for me, and I think it's obviously the more experience you could get in that type of setting, the better, because I think experience goes a long way in this game too. So that's kind of the next step is trying to have as much experience in that setting as I can. And last spring was a good first step, and hopefully there's more to come.
We were just talking about how far you came from Washington, St. Louis to now, but thinking even just like you said to a couple of years ago when you were traded to the Yankees, I want to dial it back to that. Like, what do you remember about that? Who called you? Where were you? Like, what were all the little details of when you were traded?
Yeah, I was driving home, and I got a call from the Braves minor league farm director, Ben Sastanovich, and didn't pick it up because I was driving. And then I read the text message from him. So I pulled over right away. I was like, oh, man, this is way too quick to be released. I was either traded or released. He doesn't call you just to kind of catch up. I kind of figured that. So pulled over. And then, yeah, he said I was dealt in a trade to the Yankees, and heart started racing. I was like, what does that even mean? Like, what happens next? But then right away, like a couple hours later, Yankees are calling me and introducing me to the org and getting to know me a little bit. And it was as smooth of a transition as I can imagine. But yeah, that day was crazy. Didn't kind of came out of nowhere. Didn't expect it, but looking back at it, I'm like, I don't know how I got so lucky to kind of be in that trade because it was, I mean, could have been anyone, I think. So luckily it was me, and happy to be a part of the Yankees for sure.
And thinking of your upbringing beyond that, growing up a baseball fan in Illinois, who was your team? Who were your guys? Who were your players? Like, who did you kind of model your game off of growing up?
Yeah, I think it was a little bit of everyone. I mean, Jeter was my favorite player growing up. I think he was everyone's, top five players at the time. Pedroia was another guy, kind of like that old school mentality of playing baseball. So that's just kind of the way I've always tried to model my game around those guys of trying to play the game the right way. And I mean, I'm not the biggest guy with the craziest tools, so I mean, I was realistic with myself. I knew that that had to be a bigger part of my game to kind of play hard and do all the little things. So modeling it after them was pretty easy for me because they were always guys that played the game the right way.
Fun fact about you that I actually learned the first day I met you is you're actually a big Steelers fan too. And I know you predicated a lot of your sort of mind off of Troy Polamalu and growing up as a big Steeler fan. How did that all come about?
Yeah, so my dad's from Pittsburgh. So I've watched the Steelers my whole life, and yeah, I mean it's funny you bring that up. I think even yesterday beating the Ravens 18-16, like they always have these expectations around them. I mean, I'm a big Steelers fan, so I could go all day about it, but I mean they have these expectations, and everyone's always counting them out. I think they're expected to place last in the NFC North, or sorry, AFC North this year, and I mean they're in first place right now and one of the best teams in the league. So they're kind of always, I mean, Russell Wilson, even like these expectations, everyone's counting them out already. It's like the season hasn't even started. So how are you counting these guys out? Mike Tomlin's never had a losing season. And it's from the culture within. Like that's kind of why I love them so much is year in and year out. They have that same identity, same culture. And I mean, that's why they're always in it at the end and making a playoff run, almost every year.
Absolutely. Well, Caleb, last thing, looking ahead, 2025, we talked a little bit about it, but are you someone that sets goals? What are your goals for next year?
Yeah, I think just I mean, it sounds cliche, but keep getting better. There's things you can't control with where you're playing or what level you're at. So I try to just focus on the things that I can control. And I mean, I could get better at every part of my game. I think going into every off season, I have the goal of being a big leaguer, and that's been the case the last couple of years. And now it's maybe a little more realistic this upcoming year. But having that mindset in previous years, I think is kind of set me up for being in a good spot coming into spring training this year because that's always kind of been my goal.
Terrific. Caleb, thank you so much for the time. Congratulations again on a great fall league season. And I think we can all hope and expect that the best is yet to come. So we really appreciate the time.
Yeah, of course. Thanks, Steven.